Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works in the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Evgeni.
Hi, I am number 2 this time, which caught me off guard. And so, in an attempt to recover, I will examine objects on my desk. I have scissors.
Incredible. I'm so glad you're sharing this with the class.
I also have a thing that I got in the mail it's a jury thing, jury service call.
Oh yeah, I got
for
that.
the previous owner of the house.
Oh, that's less good. Okay.
So somebody has been slacking off and not updating his address in the places.
That's like real bad.
His address. Yep.
Also joining me is David.
Hi, I'm Windrunner in the forums, and I'm wondering if Argent moved his desk because I don't see the perpendicularity behind him anymore.
No, he got it fixed.
No, I fixed it. I fixed it.
Well.
Yeah. He's out of the spiritual realm. Yeah.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah. And also joining us, not in a well, is Grace.
I'm a gator girl. I don't really have anything interesting planned for today.
Boo.
You know what? We have Words of Brandon from DragonCon. Things are happening, and so we got to do that now. And, but before we do that, we do have one piece of news, and that is that White Sand Volume 3 is here on ebook.
Kind of.
And I think, no, by the time this airs, it will not be October 1st, but the physical edition is apparently going to be out October 1st, maybe, probably. We'll see.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we'll believe it when we see it.
But both Amazon and Barnes & Noble list that as October 1st, so...
It feels solid if you can buy the ebook that the release date for the hardcover will be, like, soon.
And some people have been getting them. Like, some people have received theirs, or they've been showing up on some bookshelves, so they're definitely out there.
Bookstores don't care that much about the sell-by date for most things.
Yeah.
So you can finally get the conclusion. Is this this is shorter than the break we had between Volume 1 and Volume 2, I think.
I have no earthly idea.
Perhaps.
A year and a half. It's about the same.
Okay.
Because it was July.
June.
And then a
July,
year and a half later was February, and then a year and a half later about now.
Okay. Well, we will talk about White Sand with our White Sand crew in those highly viewed videos talking about White Sand, and we're going to be doing that next time. But you know what? It's the Cosmere you're going to get this year, so there.
Better love it.
Yeah. Great. So, our last Word of Brandon episode, we were talking about the Germany tour, and we got some from some events in Spain, and then we had DragonCon earlier this month, and so that's what we're gonna do. And so we're starting up with something from Madrid. I don't really remember, but it was a while ago.
So our first question comes from Diego98. Presumably this is the 98th Diego in the family. And he asks, big families.
Yeah.
Would Laris recognize Vax, or is it just like some AD backstory? And Brandon confirms that he would, in fact, recognize Vax.
This definitely works with my ongoing theory that Ati and Laris went to Vax first, and then something happened there, and then they went and made Skadriel or something.
Yeah, this is like our 4th Vax fact of all time. So.
Vax fact. VaxFax.
It's not a Rapho.
VaxFax with an X in for the CTS. Yeah, VaxFax.
React with our Vax emote to the Discord announcement for this episode when it comes out.
Is this our first Vax swab that isn't a Rapho?
It might be.
That's a good question, actually.
It is suggested to be a place.
One might
that's not a Rapho.
Most of them are just him being tight-lipped. Although I do want to remind people one thing from 2016 where Blightsong asks, "Can you shed some light on why Ruin's last words were Vax?" And Brandon says, "No, I can't. I mean, I can, but I'm not going to." So that's one of my favorites.
Classic Brandon.
Love it. But
Yep.
yeah, I think this is actually the one Vax that is Wob that isn't a Raffo. Yeah, I think you're correct. Everyone else is just like Brandon, completely dodging a question and not even saying it's a place.
No one tell Brandon about this wall because it was probably a mistake.
I mean, this is paraphrased. Oh, I forgot to go into Wob mode. It's fixed.
Oh,
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Great.
Yeah, the fact that it involves Laros makes me feel just a tiny bit more confident that this could be, that Vax could be the Aether of Night Planet, because we know that was kind of where we saw Preservation and Ruin in their proto forms when Brand was
which is true.
designing that planet before. So
Yep.
Perhaps.
Because like creating a planet is very unusual. Yeah, go ahead.
It is. I haven't read Aether.
Either.
I have.
But I mean, I haven't. I just haven't read it. Is there anything in the version that you've read that might suggest weird initiation to the magic system there?
Oh, right.
Because we do know that initiation is weird.
Boy. I guess kind of, because essentially what you do is every person who has an Aether has the best shown one is Amberite, which is what Maraise perhaps has in his cabinet, but they have a little crystal embedded
armory one, right?
On their wrist essentially, and you can take a chisel and break it and implant it into someone else, and they call it like an Amberite bud, more or less. And if it takes in that person, they'll also be able to make use of Amberite, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's not, they have like a whole mythology in it that it's some sort of racial thing where only the Imperial people can use it, but in actuality, it can be implanted on anybody.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
that could be an initiation thing, I guess.
Yeah. And it's not genetic. It's not based on like actions.
Not that I recall. It definitely, it appears to go in family lines because like certain families are associated with different types of Aethers, but it's not genetic in that way.
Okay.
We don't know how much Aether is gonna even be canonical, because like it was like proto-ruin and proto-preservation. Like, what does that mean? All we know is that Aether is a thing in the Cosmere, but what context that will matter, who knows?
And one of the side characters will appear in the Warbreaker sequel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, I want to get this person canonically in the Cosmere. That's right. Cool.
Where I'm gonna butcher pronunciation, so just heads up. Warbavadin and Edgley, sisters. Brandon, Rafo.
Rafo? Get out.
Rafo?
Get
One
out
of
of
those.
here.
Rafo.
Don't
I'll just
Rafo me. Yeah, I mean, I can... Oh, I know why this is included here.
Why? Oh, because the dragon
Because
thing.
Ian thinks that Vavadin and Eckley are Brandons. Are Brandons? Wait, what? Are dragons. But so that could be a reason why they're
Dragon
Raffo.
Sisters would be a unique relationship. I'll give them that.
That's like an old school fantasy title, The Dragon Sisters. It's like that is a novel for sure.
That's the middle book of the Dragonsteel trilogy. Actually, is the Dragon Sisters.
Yeah, and I want to say we have a wob that there are like familial relationships among the first vessels.
Yeah. There's at least one parent-child relationship, I believe he said. Or maybe brother sister. There's at least one familiar relationship.
I don't remember.
I don't remember that. I know I've asked about whether that is the case amongst characters on Roshar. Are there familial relationships between Rosharan characters that we don't know? And there are.
Yeah, I don't quite remember, but I imagine there could be for sure. Even if we didn't have a wob on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure those dynamics exist amongst the shards. I don't know if the best way to find them out is by just like random shotgun guessing with pairs, but
yeah,
Are these two vessels related?
They have every different combo. Yeah,
Were Laris and AT husband and husband?
There was an affection there.
I know some people would like them to be.
Yeah.
So this next one, Diego98 again, asked, did Odium have something to do with Adolin killing Sadius? Because in Thalena, he said that he had been preparing Sadius's troops for a long time. Brandon or Raffode?
That bit about Odium preparing Sadius' troops a long time has always bothered me because it doesn't make sense to me.
I kind of took it just as a long time being the period of time since Sadius' death, essentially, where Odium's been working on them to try to get them in a place where they're ready to flip on their fellow.
Sure, but it's been, a few months since the end of Words of Radiance?
I mean, you can look at it from the standpoint that Sadius' troops have always been like among the least overtly ethical. They're held to the
most
lowest
passionate
standards among the war camps, but they're not Dalinar's troops, and so you could say Odium has been perhaps trying to nudge them in that way.
Yeah.
It could just be in general that Odium generally works on people who would be more passionate in that sort of way, and he would just generically be influencing people, and then he saw an opportunity. I don't know.
I don't remember the exact quote, but I think the context in which Odium says this is like it has something to do with Amaram. And so in my head, it's always been implied that like they talk about it happens when Odium essentially possesses the Amaram army, right? The Sadius army. And the way it is written has always implied to me that this possession was enabled by the fact that Amaram is now Sadius.
I did not feel that way, but
which makes the timeline weird to me in this context.
And just another easy idea: Sadius soldiers been feeling the thrill for years. That's how Odium influences people. We know he works for the
that's
MA.
a good point.
Like,
perhaps
he uses the thrill to capture them in that moment. You know.
Okay, that's probably
Sure.
the easiest method.
I think I can accept that.
Yeah, I do not think he had an overt hand in Adolin killing Sadius. I
I
feel
don't
like
think
Adolin
so.
made that decision.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I don't think Adolin was feeling the thrill at the time.
No.
It's not really the kind of time people tend to feel the thrill unless they're like really far gone, you know.
Yeah.
All right. It's
Cool.
just a raffle.
Then at Celsius 232, another Spain sign.
That's a con.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. Javi asked, I'm really curious about A-Mian and hope to see more about it in the fourth book. Have the Heralds or Hoid been there, and will they reveal some stuff about it? Brandon, yes, the Heralds have been there, and yes, Hoid has been there. However, I don't think there will be info about A-Mian in book 4, but in a novella I'm planning to write like Edge Dancer. The story will be about some characters traveling to A-Mian. Now, in this doc, because Ian can't be here, he has helpfully put comments in for us ahead of time, and he thinks Wander Sail, which, I mean, where else would you sail to? So that seems pretty good.
That seems reasonable, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious how they're gonna avoid these, like, you know, the Daisy and A-Mian guardians. I feel like it cannot end with Risen also getting poisoned by a cook and dying on the shore.
Maybe her Larkin gives her access or some crap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's a Larkin. That's a kind of a big deal for her, right?
And that's an A-Mian thing too.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is. So they could see that as a sign of, yeah, she's okay.
Ooh. It's probably the easiest route, because otherwise you're totally getting murdered at some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder when it would be set. I don't know. Like, I feel like the world's just on fire. I don't know what Risen is kind of doing, just like sailing around. Like,
yeah, the timeline on that is a little weird. Like,
I mean, it could come down to somebody whether it's Dalinar through a vision, whether it's a Surge Binder, whether it is something they gain access to from the library in Urithiru, finds out that the Radiant and the Sleepless used to work together. And so they go, hey, what if they're still around? Let's see if we can ask for their help. And so by some convenient circumstance, Risen happens to be in place to say, hey, I have a ship and also no legs. So what else am I going to do?
That definitely seems like a sensible thing. Dalinar would always be looking for allies, and maybe that story could be about making contact with the Sleepless or something. I don't know.
I suppose.
Yeah. Maybe Risen wants to explore those undersea caverns and she never makes it to Akana.
Yeah.
Because it's only like Akana they're protecting, right? Actively like that?
I believe so.
Yeah. That's
although the storm might be around all of A-Mian, I'm not sure.
This really feels like back 5 things, so I just don't know how much we're going to get soon. Like, because of plot threads that Brandon needs to wrap up, we didn't even need to necessarily see a Dissy and A-Mian in Edge Dancer, really, right?
That's kind of what I was saying. Is I feel like there's a big step where everyone realizes that these things are real. Like, I don't know if Lift is going to like bring up to everybody like, oh, by the way, I met this incredible crab monster thing. I feel like she definitely isn't going to mention it.
Man.
Yeah, the Bugman, the weird Bugman. Like,
They don't have a boogeyman. They have a boogeyman.
I always thought that was going to be a way far away back 5 reveal with them writing the back covers of the books.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
So,
and also with the fact that they are going to be significant for the future of the Cosmere.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we'll get a lot more in the back 5, which is unfortunate because I want to know what the crap is going on with A-Mian. What's the scouring? What's Akana? How was that a Silver Kingdom? Why are the Soulcasters there? There's a lot of stuff with A-Mian, but I don't think that's going to be soon.
Yep.
Cool. Now we're on to DragonCon, and I don't know why I said it in that voice.
It's your Dragon Call.
DragonCon. And so let's begin. So that was the most recent one, and that's what we're really going to talk about today.
Let us begin with the beginning. Actually, before we begin, there is a word of was Isaac there? He wasn't there. It's a word of Brandon that is not yet transcribed, in which Brandon briefly brings up the idea that him and Isaac have been bouncing the idea of putting together a children's picture book for the girl who looked up.
Oh, that'd be cool. I would buy a Cosmere picture 100%. book. That'd be sweet.
I guess. Like, let's have
I like
too.
The visual style, I think, can be really nice. Like I can almost see it in my head. It's a very 2D, very stylized. I think it'd be really cool.
I can imagine that too. Yeah.
Let's do some wobs. DragonCon Punzi asks, have we seen a Dawnshard in any Cosmere book?
That's right.
To which Brandon says, yes and no. And then hands him a rough card.
What is that? Is that just Brandon being a troll?
Yes, I think.
I think we have seen either like... I think this is the same kind of situation as Paggy. Paggy is a shard.
Right.
So I think we have seen either a Dawnshard that has changed in some way.
Sure.
And wouldn't still be classified as a Dawnshard, but it was one day.
Yeah. All the unmade, obviously.
I know. I'm like, ugh.
It's one idea. Not in love with it, but it's possible.
It is possible.
Or we have seen kind of the remains of a Dawnshard, or the leftovers, or the after.
Sure.
Like if the Shattered Plains were shattered as a result of a Dawnshard being used or whatever. I don't think that would satisfy Brandon's yes and no.
Yeah, because then it'd be like the influence of a Dawnshard.
Yeah.
feels like maybe we saw one, but it's now different or something, and maybe
But
or maybe
we wouldn't
didn't.
call it the Dawnshard now.
We wouldn't call it a Dawnshard or Dawnshard. What? I'm doing really great
maybe
today,
it's
guys.
a Dawnshard now.
Yes.
The Dawnshards. So I don't really know, but like it could be changed in form or just unrecognizable as a Dawnshard.
Yeah.
And this
Or-
does
or
say any
inactive.
Cosmere book. So
Any
we
Cosmere
can't
book.
discount like the boombox. To be a Dawnshard.
The boombox is the Dawnshard.
or like Odium went there and just went to sell and just like dumped a Dawnshard there, and it just changed. And it's like, hey, what's up? Here you go.
Sure.
That is possible. Yeah.
That is, yep.
My resistance to the unmade being Dawnshards leads me to believe where I'm like, oh, it's just the Shatterplanes is the aftermath of someone doing something stupid with a Dawnshard, but I accept that it could be something else.
I've grown increasingly fond of the idea that the Shattered Planes were a result of Kalak doing something.
Heralds being heraldy, I like that.
That'd be really
Heralds
but
being
also-
heraldy, and
I wouldn't be
and
mad
with the
about that at
connection
all.
that I randomly came up like a few episodes ago, where Natanatan, if they were known for like being builders and architects, those are the traits that Kalak exemplifies, and so if he's connected to them in a similar way to Jezreel being connected to Alethela, then I could see that being a last standy type of thing. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny because I always thought of Natanatan as being like town. I've always associated the person to be town because it's being the Granite Kingdom, essentially, and the association with stone. But
I could see that too, yeah.
Yeah, but the Natan worship Kelek, and they think Kelek's the Stormfather. So like there's some relationship with that herald that they have. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. There could be something there.
I like the little regional quirks. That's one of the reasons for Shara is fun because Brandon does put like the work in there.
These 10 people are interpreted differently in different places, but they all exist. Ooh, I like this next one, David.
Give it to us.
Here we go. Thank you for smoothly calling my name so I'd remember.
You're welcome. I got you.
This is coming from JMC Get, I believe.
Yeah, as you do.
Jimakit, I believe. Compared to Oathbringer, how much Seth are we going to see in the book? Brandon. This one probably less Seth than Oathbringer, mostly because we're going to get his big plot in the next book. There's some cool Seth stuff in this still, but we're looking more like first book Seth rather than third book Seth, where I gave him his own micro plot in book 3. Jimakit, I was kind of imagining he's like the first character expected to die in the first 5 books. Brandon. He starts in jail in book 4 because Dalinar told him to go there. Or because Brandon realized that there needed to be consequences for Seth being a murderer, and he couldn't just turn to Dalinar's bodyguard without anybody batting an eye.
Did they actually say at the end of Oathbringer that Seth's just going to guard Navani?
He's literally guarding the door currently as Dalinar and Navani are hanging out.
Yep.
Everyone's just going, there's no way that's the same guy.
It's just a different Shin, right?
Different Shin assassin.
Yeah.
The sword's different.
Yeah. So
I mean, as long as he no longer wears white clothes, no one will know.
Yeah, easy. I definitely like him being in jail. That's a good thing that a time jump's really good at. That if we see a Zeth scene starting where Zeth's been in jail and has been in jail for about a year, and then stuff happens where it's like, okay, now we need you to go do something for us.
Yeah,
that fits better than just I'm a bodyguard.
Yeah. And it's a convenient way for Brandon to keep him out of the action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can give us a nice scene of Nightblood being Vasher spent lots of times in jail.
Book 4 opens with Seth going, it's funny how many times begin with
That's chapter 1.
So I was speaking with a friend of mine who I recently got into the Cosmere, and so he's done all of Mistborn. He's making his way through the Way of Kings, and one of we were talking about the dynamic, like why the Way of Kings works so well as a book. And one of the things that came up was the dynamic between the flashbacks and the current events for specific characters, and how what the flashbacks allow you to do is they allow you to present the character at one point in their life where they are one person, and then skip a significant amount of time and present them in a state where they've either grown as a character or they've diminished as a character in some. So, like, I don't know which side of those you would classify Dalinar as, but young Dalinar is very different from old Dalinar.
Yeah, right. Super different.
And obviously Kaladin drastically different. Shallan, not so much. But it allows you to do these things where you present the character and then you massively switch context, and now you can tell a completely different story about that character, and the two are still connected because it's the same character, it's still the same, like their core is still the same. And so the 1 year time jump in Rhythm of War allows you to do something similar with a lot of the characters, where we've been following all of their arcs very tightly all the way from the Way of Kings. In some cases, almost from day to day, we've seen how they change and what they do. And now we can take a deep breath and go, okay, something's happened behind the scenes. We don't need to see every bathroom break these characters take.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
We can now give them different things and different mysteries to worry about.
Yeah.
And
It
we
kind
have
of
them
freshens
looking
them
over
up a
their
little
shoulder.
bit.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Brandon liked how part 1 of Rhythms of War turned out. So, I mean, if there was an issue with the time jump, that would have come across in that, right?
100%.
So,
Yeah.
So clearly he thought it worked well. So I guess we'll just have to see.
Mhm.
But I like this for Zeth. Who knows how much Zeth will get, like what he'll do. Having less Zeth makes sense, I think, if we're going to get him in the next book.
It's probably not going to be the Shing, like, purging, right?
Yeah.
That's probably going to be saved for, or even if it's not like purge, like the expedition to Shinovar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably going to his book.
Just like another minor thing, I remember Brandon talking about how when book 2 was almost Seth's book, there were a lot of parallels between Kaladin's plotline in that book and what Seth's plotline was going to be.
Kaladin's or Dalinar's?
Kaladin's, I believe. Like his whole vengeance plotline that he goes on, where he like considers killing Amaram.
Huh.
And then essentially things moved around. Sorry, when Seth was book 3, I believe it was. When things moved around, they're not going to match up anymore, but there still will be some parallels between what Kaladin does and what Seth will end up doing. And so it's interesting that Kaladin spends a period of time in jail, and now Seth will be spending a period of time in jail as well.
Right.
That's interesting. I guess what I was thinking was the reveal that 3 could have been either Dalinar or Zeth, and the other one would work just as well for 5.
Mm-hmm.
So like 4 was always going to be Eshonai and or Venli. And so the fact that you can slot Zeth into 3, and you can slot Dalinar into 5, probably can tell us a little bit about where their stories are going to go.
Super interesting.
Yeah. It surprises me how much flexibility Brandon manages to pull out of a fairly well-structured plan that he had at some point.
Yeah.
And I do think it makes sense that the whole return home plot would be paralleled with the, like, in Shinovar being forced to leave flashbacks. That just...
Oh,
that'd be
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a nice parallel.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
There's something that feels right about Shinovar being like the source of the desolations, the place where the humans first came from, and it being book 5 to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seems nice.
It's kind of full circle-y almost.
Yeah.
Especially with book 1 beginning with first a desolation and then beginning with a Shin assassin.
Yeah.
So
cool.
In retrospect, I think it works really well.
Cool.
So Grace, what does Jeff say?
Jeff says, was Adenalzium's power original to Adenalzium? And Brendan said, yes, as far as anyone knows, there was no predecessor to Adenalzium. Good question.
That's good.
New
Yeah.
Adenalsium Wob.
That's kind of a big deal, so that Adenalsium isn't like... Well, I guess this doesn't mean that Adenalsium isn't a member of some other pantheon or some crap. But,
Right. Like every galaxy might have a god of this kind or something.
yeah, but there's no... We don't have to go to the god before Adenalsium, so... Which, that's probably for the best.
It's nice to limit scope a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Rebecca asks. Rebecca, who edits the Coppermind. Fantastic.
And also listens to this podcast.
Yes, she does.
And was inspired by an episode to ask this question.
Yeah, which is great.
Thank
That's-
you.
That's really humbling, by the way.
Yeah.
Extremely humbling.
Yeah.
What would happen differently if a person found a shard blade and shard plate that belongs to the same radiant? Brandon, that is an excellent question. It happened way more in the past than it happens now, but certain blades and plates are historically kind of linked together. If you were knowing to look for a difference, you would notice a slight difference, mostly if you could speak to or sense a sword, but it wouldn't have a very big mechanical difference, if that makes sense.
So I'm imagining, let's say, Adolin,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because even before his Shadesmar trip, he was kind of getting close to Maya.
Yeah.
And so I imagine if he had a matching suit, then, or matching plate, then maybe the blade wouldn't be in quite as much pain, or it would be like it would be a little more content.
Really thinking about our shard plate episode on how like maybe these are like lower spren.
Mhm.
It makes
Yeah.
sense that there wouldn't be a big mechanical difference. Because like plate's not an extension of the same spren. Like
Mhm.
so makes sense that like, hey, they're not like healed or anything, right? Like that's not the secret to healing Maya or something. But yeah, maybe they would be more content and less.
They might still be connected. Like
Yeah.
if the way you build or grow your plate is through your spren in some way, then there's that connection there.
Yeah, it kind of makes me curious about something that I hadn't thought about before, which is if Adolin, we all assume he's going to eventually bond Maya, or some people don't, but I do.
I mean, I think that's where that's going. Like that's clearly where the story's going.
But in my opinion, essentially, will he be able to progress as normal and just manifest his own suit of plate, or will that connection still exist, and will he be unable to? We have to go find that plate somewhere. Will it just naturally flow to him from wherever it happens to exist?
That is
now?
interesting.
That is
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if he gets the fourth ideal, will that just kind of unlock them wherever they happen to be to just act like normal, or will?
Right. Because
Yeah,
they can summon and dismiss the plate as well.
So
Huh.
questions we have no idea about.
That would kind of suck though if you're in the middle of a battle and then suddenly your plate just disappears because someone revived the blade and summoned
It's
it to
like-
them.
Well, and that's just
Disappointing.
like Adolin can toss his plate because it's not summonable, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that's just really interesting to think about.
Imagine if you summon your plate from somewhere and you know what? I'm not gonna go there. Move on.
I also like that. It happened more in the past than now. It's like, well, yeah,
Makes
because
sense.
they were laying next to the same person, so that's sensible.
Yep.
If you killed a shard
Yep.
bearer who took it from the Radiance, then it's like, yeah, they had the same suit and stuff. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
And I imagine over time people would like trade them or win them or lose them through duels or
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
marry other like families with shards and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, or like if you have two sons, one gets the blade, one gets the plate, and they're split up.
Sure, right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
Next question. Would a seeker burning bronze be able to tell what order a Night Radiant is in? And then we assume the question says, or at least if they're holding Stormlight. And Brandon says, yeah, but they'd have to be actively using it. So the bronze, not the bronze, the Stormlight. They have to actively do something with the Stormlight.
Yep.
If you could hear somebody, for instance, lashing, but if they just saw somebody who'd drawn in Stormlight, you probably wouldn't be able to tell until they use that Stormlight. You'd probably hear that they have the Stormlight, but I assume you wouldn't be able to tell what order they're.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The questioner says something that we don't have.
Yep.
And Brand says, no, they're not. You'd be able to do that. In fact, there are other things in the Cosmere that are kind of the same sort of radar detection here and there. And you can read in the same way. Bronze is just one of the best way to do it. Being a seeker is really handy for these reasons. Being able to go off-planet with your Allomancy also is a pretty big advantage. It's really hard, for instance, to get a Surge Binder off of Rushar because of the connection stuff that's happening. In fact, you may have heard in a prologue just recently someone complaining about that.
Which is that prologue reading? Oh my goodness!
What? I gotta say,
troll.
what a turnaround though. Like he really wanted to bring that up. Like he did not. Have to, he was talking about sensing someone with bronze, and he was like, "Yeah, Allomancy's great, especially Allomancy in space, especially unlike Surge Binders who are trying to get off of a shard." Did you hear that prologue?
Those heralds,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
Every now and then, Brandon decides that he wants to reveal something, and
he does.
And he works for it.
It's like, no, we're doing this now, and it's like, hey, were you paying attention in this reading? Hint, hint.
Yeah. So let's unpack.
Well, so totally makes sense. Bronze detects kinetic investiture. It's not just gonna detect like something being held very easily. I guess you could
easily.
Like, I don't think you can just bronze detect a fair chemical store, right? I don't think you can do that.
Probably not.
Not without great difficulty.
Yeah.
Like maybe with extreme training, it would be very hard to do.
I wonder if we know about whether you can detect like breath.
But Stormlight makes sense though, because it like kind of has that motion. Like it's
it's not sticking.
It's coming off of the person, and so that makes sense that would like have some pulses, kind of like bronze, that you could sort of detect. That seems sensible to me. But you wouldn't be able to determine what order it was until they used a specific surge, and that like leaves some ripples. And then if you were trained, you could know, oh, that means they're a will shaper or something.
Yeah, I feel like you'd have to see them probably use both of their surges. Like you wouldn't be able to tell you'd be like, oh, I see them using gravitation. We could have a Skybreaker or a Windrunner.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I guess you can detect somebody using two surges. Like you don't have to see them and the effects of those surges, and then that allows you to do it. I kind of thought Brandon was saying that you can, like a Windrunner using gravitation would quote unquote sound different from a Skybreaker using gravitation.
I feel like you wouldn't be able to tell in the same way that a Mistborn, you wouldn't be able to tell if like a Mistborn was burning bronze versus just a Misting burning bronze.
Yeah, I think it's
what
more
I
like
was thinking.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. I didn't like the orders sound different interpretation either.
I think that's just a slight simplification in what Brandon was saying. Like, I think he's just saying, yeah, if they use those surges, you can see which surge they're using and stuff. Yeah. And from there, you can interpret and infer which order it is.
I wonder if you would get anything when Shallan uses her memories, or like any of the ones that have like a little more active of a resonance that they can manipulate.
Oh, that's interesting to think about.
Like when she takes some memory?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like, or when Kaladin is feeling particularly squirey, they're like, oh, there it is.
When he's feeling square. I mean, you can technically hear when a Shardblade is being summoned or dismissed, because like there's a tiny blip.
Sure, I bet. Yeah.
So maybe.
Bronze is super good for this because you can, just so you remember, you can get any metal and use bronze. Well, any bronze, rather. Not just bronze from Scadrial. So, very convenient if you're a seeker.
Yeah, Allomancer is very, very handy around the Cosmere, really.
Yep.
It also reminds me of, I listened for the first time on graphic audio to Sixth of the Dusk recently.
Yeah.
And there I was reminded they have a detection, like a radar that finds AVR.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's
definitely
I was
similar.
wondering if that might actually be like Scadrians.
I think that's one of the
bronze.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the main theories, is that it is some sort of far future use of allomancy.
Well, or just an ability similar to allomancy, rather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, people tend to. I see a lot of theories that they're Scadrians specifically, and I feel like there are at least some Scadrians in the group. It's like the obvious thing.
Sure.
I'm sure that there is some way to do this with Fabriels, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that in the future.
Well, they have those. I'm pretty sure they have those alerter Fabriels, and I bet you could tune those to be on the lookout for magic instead of people.
Maybe
perhaps. Yeah.
Maybe the alerters are just an extreme proto version of what we could do.
Yeah.
They remind me a little more of the life sense you get from breath, but I think it works.
Yeah, because it seems like they might be detecting like mind
or innate investiture.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps.
But like we don't know. But yeah, it feels like a Fabriel could definitely do something like this and have some sort of technological way to do it, for sure.
Or an Aeon.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure.
And so I was wondering if bronze can detect breath, because it's a little bit similar to Stormlight, and it's actually there's a different WAB from DragonCon where somebody asks whether a seeker would know if something is endowed with breath. So presumably, like if you store an object, breath in an object, or if someone was holding it. And Brenda says seekers have a lot of trouble with just detecting investiture that isn't being used in some way. They could catch stormlight that you've breathed in because it's starting to do stuff, which I guess is like because it gives you like physical abilities, like enhances your abilities.
You don't have to breathe.
Heals.
Yeah, and heals you. Yeah. If just something has stormlight, like a gemstone or something like that, and then the questioner interrupts Brandon. Don't ever interrupt Brandon. That's how we lose information.
Those heralds
says,
on the
Warbreak. And says, I meant from Warbreaker if you'd endowed the garbled
an
audio.
object, cloth, maybe.
Presumably. Something with breath. Could they find that with a seeker? That's right. There are theoretical applications of this, but I would say your average seeker, no. There is a way to get there, but if you just took a seeker from and said something, they would not be able to do that.
I bet it's just like the Final Empire, or just like your average seeker off the street.
That's my read.
Just wonder if
like maybe you can train one.
Maybe
they need to be of a sufficient strength.
Sure. I think both are possible. Seeking's really interesting because it is very training dependent. Like,
yeah,
and there definitely is the whole thing where, once you know you can do something, you can do it. So it's entirely possible some of them don't realize something like that is possible.
Yeah.
It would be easier if you plopped a seeker into Roshar where there's just a lot of investiture, and then you realize, hey, those gemstones, they're there. And you can
get something out of that high storm. They'd be like, that's big. But
imagine how loud Roshar would be to their senses.
Like, maybe you couldn't determine it because it's just so much.
Everywhere.
Yeah, they're spreading everywhere, doing Yeah, that's true.
It's like trying to listen to somebody in a crowd or something.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. Well, that's very cool. Seeking's cool. We'll see it more, I imagine.
There's a question from Argent that I get to read, which is
no.
Is
not
Kriss planned to be
Argent said, but.
Oh, okay. Is Kriss planned to be a major character in the future of the Cosmere, or will she be more of a behind-the-scenes source of knowledge? Brandon, I do plan some actual Kriss stories. I mentioned I had a Silverlight story in the back of my head. She would have been one of the viewpoint characters of that if I ever get to write it. She'll be in the background of most everything, but I do plan a few stories that will have her. She will come to the forefront the more the Cosmere comes to the forefront. and more interaction between them.
I'm just imagining Kriss on the bridge of a starship, and she's like commanding one of the starships. That sounds amazing. And Hoid's commanding some other starship, and then Kelsier has this other starship. It's great. That sounds great. This is what I want in Space Age Cosmere. Just weird stuff.
She wouldn't be commander, right? She would be the
Like a science officer.
Yeah, the science officer.
Yeah, science officer, something like that.
Sure. That's cool. They get some Kriss stories.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like she doesn't get. I don't think White Sand is a particularly like positive reflection of her best traits that we see later. So it's nice that we're going to see some more Kriss stuff, because you can kind of just see her when she's very young.
And the way she is presented in White Sand is just, she has her moments when she does science and things, but for the most part, she's being dumb, she's being naive, she's being petulant. She's for some reason crushing on this annoying brat called Kenton.
Kenton!
I'm not in love with White Sand.
Yeah.
Give me the Dark Side comics.
It's kind of, well, we'll talk about that. It's interesting because I almost worry that like a Hoid origin story will just be less cool than we're making it out to be in our brains. And like seeing origin of Kriss is like, but maybe it's just that White Sand is not that amazing.
I really think it's just the fact that White Sand is not polished. Like, because I'm listening to the graphic audio volume 1 adaptation of White Sand right now, which is a very close adaptation of the original Brandon manuscript. Right. So, for example, volume 1 in the comics, the first time you see Kriss is she walks up in a tent after Kenton has almost killed himself.
Yeah.
The first time you see her in the manuscript is on a ship when they arrive from dark side to day side,
which is way cooler, by the way.
Which is way cooler, yeah. And so there are those moments that are in the manuscript that are not in the comic, in the graphic novel. And even with those, like, it's making a very strong impression on me how unpolished and how early this manuscript was in Brandon's career. Like, people are dropping one-liners in the middle of combat, and they're being quippy, and the dialogue is cheesy, and the villains are twirl their mustaches, and it's a very early Brandon book.
It is. Yep.
So I'm not too worried about a Hoid origin story.
Especially because it's going to be like 10, 20 years from now. So Brandon will be really good at it at that stage.
Yeah.
All right. So this questioner asked, the areas where you have true Spren living, does it have a connection to Stormwall? Brandon? So where the high Spren specifically? Questioner, basically, does it, for example, do Honor Spren are strong in that area because, Brandon said, because they're living in like lasting integrity? So there are reasons why in Shadesmar the Spren build the cities they do, where they do. Doesn't always correlate one-to-one with the type of Spren. Once in a while it does, but I would say as a rule of thumb, no. It's more about them finding a place that works for the geography of Shadesmar, and where they kind of just have political power and clout and things like that. Good question.
Interesting.
My read on that, because I'm a little confused. I imagine the questioner was wondering whether the fact the storm wall is the front of the high storm, right?
Yeah.
And so as the high storm moves further west, it grows weaker in the physical realm, but the amount of investiture doesn't change really. And lasting integrity is like way west.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the way to Shinovar, but like the Makabaki region. And so maybe the questioner was wondering whether whether it's better to be that far west and whether that has a connection to the storms in some way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed like they were like if there was there was significance about living in certain parts of Shadesmar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting to
yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into it because, like, they don't want to be too close to where people live because of all the emotions from they attract.
Oh, that's
sure
a good
it's-
point.
Yeah.
It's kind of like putting a city on Earth. You gotta pick a good spot.
Yep.
Good point. Imagine we'll see. I mean, we got some Shadesmar in Oathbringer, but I mean, surely later in back half we'll see lots of it, right?
I'd hope
Yeah.
so.
I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think we're gonna even get more in book 4 probably, because there was a recent wob about seeing a Fabriel, a Spren trapped in a Fabriel in Shadesmar in book
that's
4.
right, yeah.
Oh, that's
Ooh.
true. Good
That
point.
was a Reddit wob, I think, recently.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I remember that one. It's a good
Interesting.
swap, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because we saw like one example of a Spren city in book 3. Essentially how big their cities do get, because it seemed like a decent sized settlement, but I don't know how that fits on their scale of how large their population centers are. Because we know
I imagine something like lasting integrity is going to be like a fortress in Shadesmar. The honor Spren feel like the kind of like flashy, self-righteous paladin-y type of Spren.
kind of militant.
Yeah.
Or the cryptic city that pretty much has the entire cryptic population living there.
Right.
Because they only have the one.
Yeah. Oh, what a place. Yeah, we got to go there. We got to go to those places. We have to.
We got to go everywhere.
Yeah.
But first, we need to go to Kriss.
Do we, though? So this next one by Soul4 is asking if Autonomy was connected to the Iriali in any meaningful way. And Brandon said, no, I mean, they're slightly connected, but in a meaningful way, no, they're not connected. Autonomy did not start the Iriali religion. Cool.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But good to know.
Yeah, Brandon doesn't often just like stop a theory like that, so it's nice when he does close down.
Brandon, I rarely say no, Sanderson.
I really say no. Oh,
Yeah.
Brandon.
What probably be, yeah.
So next question, which is one of my favorite from this con, comes from Dorito JH, who asks, is Aeon Door... So Aeon Door is super versatile and powerful, yeah, but it's region locked, says Brandon. Yes, it is region locked, continues Dorito. Exactly. If a full ferochemist using Nicrosil were to create an unlocked medallion that allowed an Elantrian to store connection to Elantris' location, would it let them use Aeon Door at full power as long as they were tapping that connection? And Brandon, surprisingly to me, says yes, this should work just fine. And then continues, just understand that the medallion's going to have to be usable by everyone in order to work. You're going to have to jump through some hoops, but I think what you want there would work. And for those of you listening, hi, Brandon.
Hi.
You're not listening to us, but somehow we're saying hi.
Hi.
That would be the harder way to unlock Aeon Door. There are easier methods.
Huh.
This to me is really interesting. Like, right? We can talk a lot about this, and a WAB podcast is not exactly the place for it. But it's really interesting to me that you can, in theory, be an Elantrian and store your connection to Elantris, and also jump through a couple of additional hoops. And then that connection to Elantris is enough, perhaps, to allow you to access the power of the door when you are far away from Elantris. What is weird to me here is that like the power still needs to travel from cells subastral in the cognitive realm to wherever you are. Like, unlike the spiritual realm, the travel through the cognitive and through the physical is not instantaneous and cannot be instantaneous. So that's a problem.
Huh. That seems like that'd be a
one
problem
idea-
regardless of how you unlock it, you know? I don't know.
It would seem that way, yeah. And so one idea that Jaffu had was that, at least I think it was his idea, was that you could have essentially, maybe it was Cal, you could have essentially the power tunnel through the spiritual realm, like a tunnel, essentially, like a wormhole, from cell to wherever you are, and like that's the additional step that you need. So you're still on Roshar, let's say, and you're still taking the power from cell, but that power is jumping into the spiritual and then out of the spiritual instantly to where you are, which I don't like, by the way, but it's an explanation.
Yeah, because as you read it, I initially thought he was saying, oh, it would just allow you to use Aeon Door at a strength similar to if you were in Elantris, should you be able to use Aeon Door. But it does seem more like he is saying that it would allow you to just use it. So that is strange to me. I don't like the quantum tunneling. I feel like the Eerie would have figured that out if they could have, and that's the reason they're walking around with their canteens full of Investiture. But
oh, the Eerie. I was like, what did the Eerie have to do with this?
The Eerie.
It is the Eerie. I will admit that Brandon gave a phonetic pronunciation for that, and
yeah,
in Secret History, so I'll accept that one.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just ire, and it's just kind of weird. So,
the ire.
Goodness, I don't even know what I even think about this, other than that.
And there's also the Moon Scepter.
Yeah, the Moon Scepter, which does something,
or does nothing, as I begin to suspect.
It's really interesting. How do you get the Investiture out of the cognitive realm to use it? Like, you need some sort of bridge, or maybe that bridge just automatically happens. And you need some sort of spiritual... Look, anything in the end is some spiritual mumbo-jumbo in the Cosmere. That's just a fact. But
stop theorizing now.
Spiritual realm.
Futile.
Where's the ancient alien guys, but with spiritual realm, like that?
I mean, Brandon did the dragons.
Yeah.
That was great.
Put that in the comments. What would be the easier way to unlock Andar? Like, oh, goodness. This is going to be one of those things that's going to be really obvious in retrospect, but, like, we were discussing why it was region locked for years.
And did not get all that close.
No. It was like, oh, it's in the cognitive realm. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's just like, oh, great, cool.
I just think spiritual wormhole sounds cool.
That's what they actually that's what the spaceships are going to use actually in the future.
Okay, like actually related, Brandon has said that he would like Oath Great Travel to somehow work through the spiritual realm.
Yeah,
as some sort of truly instantaneous teleportation, and so spiritual wormhole perhaps confirmed to exist.
If he can't make that work, then he's going to fall back to using Shadesmar.
How could he not make it work? The spiritual realm can do whatever he wants it can do.
I can't.
The spiritual realm is specifically not understandable by human minds.
I bet he's trying to think ahead and thinking, is this going to break something?
Yeah, it's probably that. It's probably that more than anything. If I change the spiritual realm to allow this, what other awful things can Shards exploit in the future?
Yeah.
True.
Which is the thing he has to think.
Yep.
All right. Up next, we have from Questioner. When Odium and Dalnar were having their meeting in Oathbringer, Odium seemed kind of freaked out by something. Could it possibly be related to how Lift can interact with Spren in the physical world? And that might cause some problems for him. We think it says seeing the impossible? ? Brandon, he is weirded out by Lift, certainly. Lift is something that shouldn't exist. Let's just say that. You'll find out why, probably in book 6, but she should not exist.
Very interesting phrasing.
Why is that?
It implies to me that what cultivation did with Lift is normally impossible.
Yeah, it sounds like it's
true.
in violation of some sort of natural law, essentially.
Huh. That's crazy. Yeah, that is what that is implying, yeah. Huh.
Which, I mean, to be fair, because she can touch objects that shouldn't have any substance, so...
Yeah.
Seems like that's been pretty much in our faces the whole time, but...
Well, I mean... Spren do have a little bit of substance in the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
she's just amazingly good at, like, because she's not pulling Window more into the, like, for anyone else, Window is as physical as any other sprint, right? I think the one time we see other people kind of take notice of Window is in Edge Dancer at the very beginning when the constable lady is chasing after Lift. I think she notices like a little bit of dust on the ground, which is Window's vines and crystals disintegrating, but that's it.
I don't think this is the most interesting thing about Lift.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, the fact that she metabolizes.
Isn't that much more interesting? Isn't that
like,
way more important than the like touching friends sometime? Like that's like a thing that happens all the time for her.
What?
Oh yeah, well that was just an aside.
Related though, I think they're probably caused by the same underlying mechanic. What the Night Watcher, whatever the Night Watcher did to her.
Sure.
Okay. Crackpot theory.
Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah, no. I think this one isn't even that bad, honestly. So
we should do a Lift podcast.
That'd be kind of fun.
Probably should.
Yeah.
So in my head, I've always. That's what the people want.
They
want to see us nerds going to the gym and lifting weights. Yep.
There you go.
I'll live stream from the gym.
But so essentially, I've always thought of what happened to Lift as kind of being honestly a little bit of a bummer for her, since we know she can't use Stormlight like other people can. So I feel like it's just a little less flexible. Like if she wants to go fight, she has to go eat a meal, and everyone else can just.
Can she not breathe in Stormlight?
She cannot breathe in Stormlight as far. Yeah, that's her only. That's why she has to ask for food when Dalinar's charged all those gems, because she's out.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But so more or less in my head, I'm like, oh, it doesn't seem like a very useful thing from cultivation. I think what Lift. Okay, crazy idea. At some point in the future, easy way to shut down Radiance: deprive them of Stormlight. Somehow, Odium manages to deprive our heroes of Stormlight. Hopefully isn't kill the Stormfather, like that'd be really bad for Rishar. But so they are disabled. And what Lift does is either she herself directly or is proof that this is possible, shows them that they can generate Stormlight by breaking down matter in some way, that the two are the same. And that will allow them to use their abilities in a situation where Odium thought he had deprived them of their power.
That would seem kind of broken.
Yeah.
Yes.
It may be really cool, or it may just have the worst payoff ever, depending on how it's set up.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm just trying to think of a situation where Lift's kind of lame power, in my opinion, like it's useful in a surprising way, but other than that, it's not useful for direct prime combat for Lift.
Sure.
Yeah. And situations where she's like imprisoned or something. And then her captors are like, well, she has no Stormlight, she can do nothing, and then she just does things. I imagine that's going to show up a lot, relatively speaking. I don't know if it would ever go beyond that.
I feel like it's really important. Like I feel like cultivation, this is one of the most important gifts cultivation has given.
Well, it was the Night Watcher. Because Lift asked the Night Watcher. What are you doing, David?
Because Dalinar was the Night Watcher until we saw that it wasn't the Night Watcher,
Well, Brandon. Well, okay. But Brandon has said Lift asked the Night Watcher for something she didn't understand how to give.
And then cultivation pops up and says, here's your gift. Like, I don't know. I think it's very possible that, and more likely than not, that Lift interacted with cultivation and not the Night Watcher. But it could be the Night Watcher.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say either way with certainty.
If Odium is weirded out by Lift, which, by the way, rereading, I could never quite figure out why Odium was just like, wait, what? In that vision in part 2 of Oathbringer. And so I guess Brandon's saying, oh yeah, Odium's just like weirded out by Lift, I guess. Could the Night Watcher even do that? Like, if Odium's weirded out by it, then that must be cultivation stuff, right?
Well,
I don't know.
So my read on that scene has always been that it's less that Odium is weirded out by Lift and more that he notices something strange in a vision that he should be controlling.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And so he doesn't necessarily know that there's this 13-year-old that suddenly popped into his vision. He knows that something happened.
Something entered this, and it's weird.
Something entered his vision, and he did not want that thing to enter his vision.
Sure, okay.
And so he goes, I'm going to nope out.
Yeah, it is just like one of the most baffling lift moments, by the way, too. Like, was she awake when that happened? Was she asleep?
How did she able to enter the vision?
that? Yeah.
How does that work? We need to do a podcast on Lift. That's what we need. Why
I
have
have
we
no
done?
idea.
I don't know.
I have like zero ideas.
Maybe it'll be one of those short podcasts that's like, wow, Lift, that's weird, right, guys? Hey. But
We jumped the gun a
can
little bit.
speculate what happened to her in Ral Elarim that made her terrified.
yes, great.
It will be. I mean, we didn't know anything about Kurth,
We can.
and we know how that ended up.
We do. It's infamous. No one complained about that one. People complained about half shards, but no one really complained about our half-hour tangent on Kurth. For some reason,
We've trained them.
we have the people who who didn't like the half shard episode. They're not watching anymore. Grace, let's go to the next one.
All right.
Let's move through
This
these.
questioner asked, how many hands has Nightblood passed through since he left Vasher? And Brandon said, since he left Vasher? More than you'd expect. It's been a while.
Huh. I mean, the Night Watcher just allegedly just says, like, hey, do you want a black sword that leaks smoke
Yeah.
to Dalnar? So that's kind of a thing.
So, did Vivenna have Vasher at the end of Warbreaker? Or not Did Vivenna, which one of the two was holding Nightblood at the end
Vasher.
of...
Oh, definitely
Vasher?
Vasher.
I was just wondering if, like, Vivenna had it then. Maybe, like, Vasher hasn't actually had Nightblood since then.
Mm.
No, I think it was lost somewhere in getting to Roshar, and then on Roshar, it went through several hands.
They had a
guess.
falling out, Eric. Nightblood did not get lost.
What does that even... There's so many questions packed into that, and I know you're right, because Brandon did say they had a falling out. What does that mean? He's a sword. Just don't unsheath him. Just keep him on your back.
Vasher, like, at some point, just, like, dropping him and being like, all right, and just walking off and leaving him laying on the ground.
Yeah. I'm just imagining Vasher and Nightblood walking through Shadesmar, and Nightblood's like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And Vasher's just like, I can't handle it anymore. Rah! That's probably not what happened, though.
It sounds very plausible.
It really does, though, doesn't it?
But it's interesting because, like, I remember at some point we talked about the Night Watcher having Nightblood and how that happened, and I think we tried to fit that with an idea that Vasher, for some reason, gave the blade to either as a trade or either like for some. And what this suggests is that maybe they separated way before that, and Vasher hasn't passed through any hands. Nightblood, except Vivenna's, and Nightblood has. Welcome to Spicecast.
Spicy.
Nightblood has maybe passed through several hands and then made its way to the valley, and then maybe even more hands before it finds its way to Nail.
Yeah, because I had kind of in my head assumed that maybe Nail ended up getting him from the Night Watcher directly, and now I feel like that is less likely.
Yeah. There's so many questions with Nightblood there, and just everything with that. There's so much weirdness. I have no idea.
It feels like Nail might be like super cautious about going to the Night Watcher or accepting the boon and the curse. Like just knowing that she's a Spren and she can misinterpret things drastically.
But
I feel like Nail has a pretty good idea of what you're signing up for if you go see the Night Watcher. You know?
surely.
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe someone got Nightblood from the Night Watcher, and then Nail heard about this sword and this guy who was murdering a bunch of people,
Yeah, okay.
and went to investigate and take care of it.
Like a weird sword, that sounds like a surge binder that I need to kill, right? Like, that seems pretty natural.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very plausible.
This seems very reasonable to me, yeah.
That's what he would literally be hunting, so. Okay, that feels good, but like, how did Nightblood get with the Night Watcher? That's weird. Oh, they both have Night in the name, so it makes sense. They're connected in the spiritual realm, easy.
We find out that the Night Watcher was solely created to watch Nightblood.
Right.
That's the night the Night Watcher was watching, just Nightblood.
What if one of the things that used to be a Dawnshard that wasn't? What if Nightblood's original name was Dawnshard?
Dawnshard.
And that is Nightblood.
It's no longer. Technically.
Yeah, it's not
we've
the
seen
Dawnshard anymore.
Terrible.
Nightblood isn't his original name. Just wanted to say that. So this next questioner is asking about when you awaken, you pull color out of things. What's going on there? And Brandon said that you're changing the spirit of the thing, which is then filtering into the physical, which is, that's really cool. Cool.
So it leads to an actual physical change in the object. And so you can like break proteins down and things like that.
Well, if that color is connected to that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Huh.
And now it's me, the Cosmere mail service.
Yep.
Somebody asks about whether Hoid is actually sending actual letters to actual dragons and how that's working out because they're different planets. And Brandon says there is a courier service that you can hire in the Cosmere, like Pony Express, a little bit. Not everything Hoid is doing is using that courier service, but this is one example. And they, being the couriers, they have to go through Shadesmar, so you can hire a very specialized group to get things where they are supposed to go.
That's going to be real fun as the war in Roshar gets harder. Like, how does Hoid get out of here? Like, that doesn't seem easy to do here.
He also has a sprint now.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and he may have
the
the ability to generate his own small little perpendicularity and pass through that way. Brandon has not decided yet. At some point.
Wait, what? I don't remember that at all.
I wrote the Hoid page.
It's not that I don't believe
Citation
you. I'm just
needed.
like, wait, what?
Like he travels through the perpendicularities, but Brandon has said that at some point he may gain access to a magic that would allow him to like essentially do what Yasna does and else call.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I probably should have phrased that better.
I was like, wait, what?
Only
hold up. You just casually toss that in there.
It honestly wouldn't surprise me if at some point Hoid just got enough investiture that he could just be a perpendicularity.
Man, that's a lot, though.
I think you need a lot, yeah.
You probably need a lot.
But yeah, so there's a particular group that you hire. That's interesting. But Hoid can do other things too? Oh, all right, cool.
So from Dorito JH again, what would happen if Nightblood was wielded inside of a perpendicularity for a significant period of time? Brandon, bad things. Depends on perpendicularity. He could probably collapse perpendicularity, so bad things would happen.
Whoa, that is not
That's
good.
Scary.
Why does it depend on the perpendicularity? What the hell does that mean?
I think some are set up differently.
I guess so. We have seen several that are different.
Yeah, my guess is one, if you have something like, so if Honor's perpendicularity is somehow distributed and you need to like bring the glorious brand or whatever, then maybe Nightblood doesn't have enough time to actually do damage to that. Like it's gonna kill off some of them and the perpendicularity is going to disperse again or something. Or maybe there are like maybe it depends on the kind of the strength or the magnitude of the perpendicularity. So if you have one, let's say, such as the Well of Ascension, which is almost all of Preservation's power, right?
Mine.
Then
Preservation's power is the mist. It's not all of Preservation's power.
It's a decent chunk of it.
It's a decent chunk of it, but it is not. The statement Argent said is not correct.
Oh, I'm just saying that it's not Preservation's mind, though. That's not what that is either.
It kind of is, though, but it is.
No, he used his mind to capture ruin. It's not his mind. It's just power.
Yeah, but that's what the well is. That's literally what the well is.
Oh, we could go on a long tangent here, but I dispute that.
Okay.
But regardless, it is not all
Scrap
of
that.
preservation's power. That is definitely not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can of worms. The Well of Ascension has always been a little confusing to me. There's a lot of investiture in there, right? So maybe a perpendicularity that's like super dense and super invested is going to be able to resist Nightblood better or for longer, or something.
Mm-hmm. And in my head, I asked Brandon like a million years ago when he did his forum Q&A, where essentially why does the pool that we see in Elantris behave so differently from the pool in Mistborn? And essentially I'm going to paraphrase it, but he said they were set up differently because they're not the same thing essentially. And I feel like perpendicularities that are kind of like the well, that exist to give power to something would probably be more easily disrupted and destroyed than something like the one we see on Cell.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think is solid.
Something those shard pools being perpendicularities is more of a side effect, I think, of their primary purpose. So like the well was not set up to grant access to the cognitive realm. The well was set up to give the power of preservation to the Hero of Ages, or not the Hero of Ages, but like whoever went in there, right?
It's just a consequence that you can.
And as a consequence of that, because there's so much investiture in there, it is also a perpendicularity.
That's a good way to look at it.
The pits of Hatson were set up to circulate 80's investiture throughout the realms. As a side effect, now there's a lot of investiture there. Yeah, it's also perpendicularity.
I agree. I like that.
Okay, so in this next one, Brandon says that basically he likes science and that in the Stormlight 4, you will have a character, a scientist, who appeared in the book we're talking about, talk about some of the things he got wrong. And so this was at a Warbreaker panel.
Warbreaker 10th anniversary panel. Yeah. So that
Denth is still alive.
A scientist who appeared in Warbreaker? Is that what Brandon is saying?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Will also show up in Rhythm of War.
It's got to be Vasher, right?
It's got to be Vasher, yeah.
Vasher.
Yeah.
So what did Vasher get wrong? Like the Nightblood stuff?
Nightblood went so well. It was an incredible success.
Well,
he killed his wife to avoid making another Nightblood, but turns out Nightblood was an anomaly anyway, so it's no mistakes there.
Nightblood was his wife all along.
The real name of Nightblood was Glory Singer all along.
Maybe that's how we'll get the Warbreaker sequel. Is Vasher will briefly summarize it for us in the events of Rhythm of War, and he's like, "All right, so I found out."
So the God Beyond doesn't have time to write this thing.
Well, the art in the Warbreaker anniversary is amazing. That's what he says. That's a quote.
No, but it's so obviously Brandon is bringing this up in the context of a science and a scientist getting something wrong. Presumably something scientific.
One would hope. It's not. He's like, I thought it wasn't going to rain today.
So presumably the biochromatic entities, and maybe him learning more about Spren made him learn other things? I don't know.
Either that or like a lesson on how he should have done Nightblood in the first place, but that doesn't seem awfully exciting to me. I was thinking more like, do we know from the brief times he shows up in Stormlight, like, does he make any claims about like factual things?
Not really, no.
He mostly does not want to talk.
No, he just kind of complains a lot.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe something to do with like Stormlight and Breath and like him using one over the other and like conversions and things like that.
Let's talk about any of that.
I do think that Nightblood makes the most sense, especially if Vasher and Vivenna meet in Stormlight 4 and he sees her sword.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Oh, from that perspective. It's like, this is how I should have done things.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting because it seems like Vasher will have to come forward with his connection to Nightblood, because that's something that they do not know at this point, that he is related at all.
Oh, so yeah, that our main
they're going to learn that they're going to learn there's more to Zahel than they previously had assumed.
Oh yeah, because
but also Nightblood is like going to scream in everyone's mind.
That's going to be so interesting if Zahel's just in Irithiru looking for Nightblood. It's like, hey.
I don't think he's looking for Nightblood as much as avoiding Nightblood as much as possible right now.
But he
also
Nightblood.
misses him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least he misses something about that, like companionship that they had.
Yeah, that's true. Zahel's not seeking out Nightblood. That's what Vivenna's doing. You're right.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I have no idea what this means, and I guess we'll find out. So this next question asks, Hemalurgy can mix and match powers. Would it be possible to use Fairchemy for connection to hack into multiple Knights Radiant, kind of act as a squire to more than one at the same time? Rand says, great question. I think you could make this work. I think it would take a little bit of legwork, but I think what you're wanting to do could indeed work. More likely in that case, though, you could probably be a squire to multiple orders. Then he's like hesitantly saying, yeah, I think that would work, but I don't think that's the easiest way to do what you want to do. I think there's easier ways.
So maybe just kind of hang out with a lot of Radiants and exhibit attributes associated with their orders, and that just kind of forms the necessary connection.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe it's just hard to have that enough connection to both with like two people to be a squire of both, but I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I see Spren that seem a little possessive of their Radiant and, you know, associate people, so I feel like they would not willingly allow that to happen, depending on how much influence the Spren have over that. But
yeah, I don't know how much control the Spren have over like squirehood.
Well, that's another good point that we don't really know the mechanics of.
Still doesn't seem to be doing anything special.
That's true. Yeah.
But the possibility exists so that if she was trying to intentionally withhold something, she could, you know?
Yeah. Oh, this next one is spicy.
Spicy question incoming from Questioner, our most prolific person to ask questions.
That's true.
Could someone use a Seon or Skaze to build a Fabrio, and what would it do? Brandon takes a deep breath because he's going to speak a paragraph. It depends on how you define a Fabrio. If you define Fabrio as trapping a sapient splinter in a gemstone, I guess they don't all have to be sapient. They can all like flame spren and stuff like that. So if you define it as capturing a spren in a gemstone, could you capture a Seon in a gemstone? I would say yeah. The Fabriel, what it will do is going to depend on a whole lot of factors. How you build Fabriels even sometimes have to do with it. Some of the Fabriels don't care as much what the splinter piece is. Obviously, a heating Fabrio or something like that does. Other ones, it's not as related. So I would say what the power of the Aeon in the Seon is would influence what kind of Fabrio you could make from it. Good question. Excellent question. I've never been asked that before.
That's quite interesting.
Makes a lot of sense.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It honestly didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, it surprises me or at least it raises a larger question for me, which is, are gems inherently able to capture Investiture then? And it's not something that's unique to whatever's happening on Roshar. I want to see them put a spren in a gemstone in a normal fashion so we can see how that happens, because it doesn't. It surprises me a little bit that it's not the quality of Stormlight or Spren that allows it to happen.
Maybe I guess it'd maybe be hard to get an Aeon in a gem. Like, what does that mean? And maybe there's other ways to do that.
You can get an Unmade in a gem. Maybe you can get Void Light in a gem. Hashtag Gavilar's Black Sphere.
Obviously, of course.
Obviously, you can get Stormlight in gems. With this and to me, this is a confirmation that you can't put a Seon and an implication that you can put a Skaze in a gem specifically. And so with this, I think it is clear to me that you can shove any kind of investiture in a gem, barring some very specific circumstances, right? Maybe this kind of investiture doesn't play nicely with whatever, right?
But I guess that would apply to Furukami, I assume. Like you couldn't store something in a gem.
Well,
could
yeah,
you?
but I think you need some sort of like free investiture, and fair chemi is very connected to the specific metal, so that obviously wouldn't work. In hemalurgy, that wouldn't work. But like if you had some sort of, could you somehow put like the mists into a gem like that? I would say is probably possible in some respects, because it's like kind of more free investiture, like Stormlight is. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's very similar to Stormlight.
you could put breath in a gem for sure, because you can just put breath in anything. But
Well, yeah.
I don't know if it would be
Not in this
differently.
way.
Could you? I bet. Could you power a Fabriel if you put breath in it instead of Stormlight?
I think you can put breath in a gem in the same way that you put Stormlight in a gem. So obviously you can just store the breath in the fabric of the gem in the same way that you would store a breath in, let's say, a piece of cloth or anything. But I think you can also put the breath, if you can get it out of you without like giving it, right? Because every time you have a breath leave your body, you are giving it to something or someone. So if you can just extract that, then I think you can put it in a gem in this, like to act as a battery.
I think you could do that, but I don't think that would make it a Fabriel.
I think it would power a Fabriel, because I know that Brandon said you could be having or like hold breath, and you'd be able to use surge binding, and it would fuel it pretty easily.
Sorry,
so
let me be specific. It could power a Fabriel, but you would need some sort of spren or spren-like thing to make that work. That's a really important thing. But like, sure.
Unless maybe a divine breath would work different.
That's true. Yeah, maybe that.
What if you put it in with a command though, and that's providing the cognition for it?
Oh my goodness! Talk about a can of worms. Oh my goodness! What?
You know what?
I don't know.
Yes.
I think would be interesting is if you just take a gemstone and leave it out on Taldane on Dayside.
Ooh, yeah, because the sun itself is invested.
Carries the investiture, and it's like the microbes are like essentially storing it.
Yeah.
Autonomy light
doesn't roll off the tongue quite as much as the storm light.
Third light.
Independence light. Sand light is good.
Sand light, I like that. That's good. Only works with diamonds because it has to be white. Because color is important. Easy.
Color is important to Cosmere.
That's right.
And apparently so are gems.
Yeah, clearly.
All right. Questioner. I never understood why Vin couldn't hold the ruin shard. Brandon. I could see a world where Vin maybe could have done it, but the trajectory she was on was opposed to it. Vin could have understood and become it, but what are the things that are keeping her? Vin, I don't think accepts, number one, that decay has to happen. She's experienced it a lot, but there's that piece inside of her that doesn't want that to happen, doesn't want things to change, does not want people to leave her. I think that would be, if you read through, that's the sole sort of center event is, don't leave me, don't go away, don't change. And this is diametrically opposed to Ruin. People focus on the fact that she's good at killing, and she is, but that heart, that soul, Ruin is more about things changing and decaying than even about destroying. Questioner, and I guess that's the reason why she can hold preservation very easily. Brandon, yes.
That's cool. This is deep stuff in this question. Yeah. This is real deep. Okay, firstly, do you need to accept that decay needs to happen to hold Ruin? Because I was under the impression that was more of an Ahti thing. That Ahti like kind of resigned that yes, things must decay, and like maybe a different vessel holding Ruin would be more malevolent and just like be more destruction-y.
Well, we are putting words on an inherently very like nuanced intent, intent, right?
Yes.
And so decay is one of those words, but it's not. It's not like even decay on its own has different meanings.
Yeah.
It can be the natural decay of things after they die. It could be as things are living, they decay and progress towards death. It could be the active like destruction of things around you. And so I've always focused more on the change aspect
Sure.
of ruin.
Yeah.
And in that context, Vin doesn't like change very much.
Totally. And I really like that question, but I guess I'm more just, I'm connecting it back to how much connection did the original vessels need to get the shards? And what about like Sazed, right? Like that's still like so vague for me and weird.
Yeah. I think it does say a lot about Sazed, though, that he must have, if this is what Brandon's saying, you need to be aligned with these intents at your core, that he had changed a lot if he was able to take up both, you know, with his dark period in Hero of Ages.
I guess that's true. The things have to change.
He is a conflicted and conflicting character, right? Because inherently you have to be in a really weird headspace to fundamentally think that things should stay the same, but also fundamentally think that things should change.
Yeah.
Right?
Probably why he's having so much trouble now.
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Sitting on 2 shards worth of power, and it's like, well,
Secret History really just kind of glossed over that. It's like, oh, Sazed's had a rough time, and then they just left it like that, right? I'm like, that doesn't answer any of my questions here at all.
Well, the implication, I think, has always been that the very nature, by the very nature of being a ferochemist, the act of push and pull, change and stasis, like
balance,
diametrically balance, harmony,
hey.
Have always has always been a fundamental thing to him, and so maybe ferochemists would, on a whole, be naturally more able to ascend to something like harmony, or something like, as some people have speculated, discord, or I mean they've speculated discord,
as opposed to one or the other, like both. It would be easier for ferochemists. Okay, yeah, I like that. Wow.
And then how much of that actually goes into specifics like change or decay or stasis, that may vary.
Yeah.
And it is still definitely like more complicated, because we know the well was supposedly some kind of tuning, or like a tuned Vin to be able to take up the shard.
Yeah.
I wish that hadn't been in there, because that definitely complicates things. But
yeah.
Given what we just discussed, argued about with the Well of Ascension, it's like, wow, there's a lot of shardic weirdness occurring on Scadrial that we thought was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But as we come back, it's like, wait a minute. What? Wait, what?
Those are some deep rabbit holes.
Rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into another rabbit hole with this next question?
Oh boy.
This one's real spice.
This questioner asked, in the Threnody novel, is it inaudible perpendicularity in a specific place, or does it have to do with a set of circumstances? Brandon, Threnody does not have a perpendicularity.
Wow.
Questioner, Brandon, the way to travel on there has specifically to do with the fact that a shard was killed nearby.
Whoa! This is crazy.
So, before we even unpack this,
okay,
it is, I believe, in Kriss's essay on Threnody,
yes,
that she talks about unstable perpendicularities in there.
Yes.
Yeah, of a morbid origin.
Okay.
So that could be all Brandon is saying here. There isn't a perpendicularity. There are like perpendicularities come in and out of existence.
Because the shard is dead.
Brandon's saying there's not a stable perpendicularity like the other perpendicularities.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So that eliminates like half of
weird stuff.
It feels half of the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it does. That helps.
Now the other half, the way to travel on there has specifically to do with the fact that a shard was killed nearby.
I guess I just thought that ambition died elsewhere, but I guess that's not the case. I
mean,
well, it definitely went elsewhere. Like it left the system for sure.
Huh.
Because it was killed, quote, in another place. or the final splintering occurred in another place for sure.
Mm.
I don't know. I've never been able to make up my mind on how to interpret that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that mean just in interplanetary space within the same solar system?
Right.
Does that mean outside of that solar system? I don't think we can go like too far beyond, because then it just like it gets disconnected.
Yeah, because it was like an essay about the system, I took it as outside of this system. But
I think my initial read was they kind of battled on the planet, perhaps similarly to Cell.
Yeah, sure.
And then Ambition left and like kicked the bucket in the upper atmosphere or something, or like between the planets.
The clash definitely took place in the space outside of Threnody. It did not happen on Threnody. Like from the, if I'm recalling the quote correctly, from the actual essay.
Might be.
Yeah, I can pull it up if we want.
Let's do it.
All right.
A good idea.
It's like it was my favorite essay in all of Arcanum Unbounded. So.
Absolutely. When Brandon just like, this is where the shard ambition. Whoa. New shard. Wait, hold up here.
Just like that.
Hold up.
Okay. Here we go. The direct clash between two shards of Odium had a profound effect on the planets of this system. Though the actual battle took place in the vast space between planets, and though the true contest happened mostly in other realms, the ripples of destruction and change washed through the system. Odium clashed with and mortally wounded the shard Ambition here. Ambition would later be splintered, though that final act took place in a different location. It says that, and it opens with the Threnodite system as a site warped by an ancient conflict. So I feel like it happened outside of the Threnodite system.
That does suggest that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe maybe Brandon this Word of Brandon is more being like, hey, if there's these warped like pieces of Ambition and shard stuff that splintered off, maybe Brandon's just like simplifying a shard killed and it's just a result of that conflict, right? Rather than Brandon being literal, Ambition died there.
Yeah. I think it's an oversimplification, not Brandon being wrong, but
yeah, you're right. That seems more likely. All right, cool.
I will just peek into a can of worms real quick, and then we're gonna close the can of worms. Okay,
great.
We're not opening that can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brandon doesn't say Ambition.
Okay, that's a very different can of worms. Yeah, but that sounds unlikely. But
yes, it does.
The essay says, investigations in how this changed the battle. The other planets of the system have been fruitless, as none of them have perpendicularities to allow physical visitation. So it's not that it was an unstable perpendicularity.
That is interesting that
they
don't also have unstable perpendicularities on their planets. Like there is something specific about Threnody.
Oh, right. Sorry. At the end, they say, unfortunately, visiting the planet is difficult as there's no stable perpendicularity, only very unstable ones that cannot be predicted easily and have a somewhat morbid origin. That morbid origin's weird if Kriss is just opening with the conflict with Ambition, but maybe you like need to do something that is morbid or something to like
that's
form one of
been
these.
My interpretation. Yeah.
Like we have an unstable perpendicularity now. Honor's perpendicularity. For one thing.
Yeah.
Is it unstable in the same way?
I mean, it's unstable and that it is not a pool that you just jump in, like all the other perpendicularities, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There could be similarities between the Threnodite ones and Honor.
Honor is dead as well. But I've always kind of just assume that it is like when a shade is being created, there is some sort of thinness to the realms there. So when someone is killed by a shade and they're becoming a new shade, you can kind of slip through around there. But,
perhaps.
But that also seems like Threnody is weird in that Brandon says there's a lot of ambient investiture around, which is why people end up becoming shades, but also it's a minor shard world, so there's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a low power planet.
Well,
So-
there's no invested art, but there's investiture around. But yeah,
But like there's a bunch of shattered shard chunks on Cell. There's a lot of investiture floating around. So,
yeah, but the
I don't
application
think
of what?
that's-
Yeah, it's not the same.
I
I don't know why
imagine
it
on Threnody, I think on Threnody you would have, so like ambition would essentially disperse everywhere, and so you have this you can think of it as a massive cloud of investiture and like body parts of ambition that maybe it's in outer space, and then whenever the planets in the Threnodite system pass through it, you get weird things. Or maybe it's like investiture meteors raining down on the planet. Or maybe they're just on the planet itself, right? But they are kind of free sources of investiture, whereas on Cell, most of it is actually just contained in the cognitive realm.
I guess in my head though, he said that there's enough background investiture that people are turning into cognitive shadows. So that's like why that happens. And so that in my head, that means there is probably more background investiture floating around than even there is on Cell, which doesn't necessarily make any sense, but doesn't happen on Cell. People don't die and turn into cognitive shadows because when there should be plenty. And maybe that's because that's in the cognitive realm and there's not enough in Threnodi's cognitive realm. Or maybe
that's what I think is the case. Yeah.
There could be a
But it is
lot of
different.
There could be a lot of weirdness with how that battle shook out and how much like investiture like was just shoved into the physical realm, because to be honest, shards don't usually shove a lot of power into the physical realm. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And if it's doing that and shards usually do that in a specific way if like Odium's creating the Everstorm, right? Like that's a very specific kind of construct. There's like the mists. But if this is happening in a conflict, then like maybe it's just weird because the shard is just like, I'm just shoving power to like resist this other shard and stuff. And so then the application is different than these careful constructs that we see shards usually do.
Yeah. You can make up almost any kind of oddity for that conflict.
It really is.
They're battling in the spiritual, and then whenever the two sources of investiture collide, they get super dense and create the mini perpendicularity. Some of it just like squirts out into the physical.
What a hype essay in Arcanum Unbounded. That essay is so hype. Just like, oh yeah, the ancient battle with Odium and Ambition. It's crazy.
The what now?
It's like, wait. Let's go on to the next one though. Because honestly, we could do a Threnody podcast as well. There's so many podcasts that we could do. Because Threnody's has a lot there. So this questioner asks, so you read the prologue. So that's the prologue of Stormlight 4 that we talked about in the last episode. Does that imply that the guy with the rings, the steward with the rings, are those chemical rings, or am I going to get Raphoed? Brandon, to no one's surprise, says, you're going to get Raphoed so fast. You're going to get Raphoed so fast. So fast. And so, I mean, hard for me to imagine a steward with rings where Brandon mentions the rings twice is not a ferrochemist. It's really hard for me to justify that.
He like fiddles with them.
Yeah. What else could that mean?
I really, really don't like him as a ferrochemist. But it's also like you didn't need to put steward and rings together.
It's like Brandon knows we're not dumb.
Yeah.
You could have had a steward. You could have had a guy with the rings who's not a steward. But
together.
He just has to have written that so many times that I feel like he'd write it and be like, oh, that's kind of like Mistborn. And then be like, oh,
It's like, I'm doubling down. It's a world hopper. Easy.
Yeah.
Just add it to the list of random people that Gavilar's assassination. It's just like, oh yeah, and there's that ferrochemist that one time. Like, yeah, sure, why not?
All the
Yeah.
heralds, a ferochemist, Raze was probably in there.
Let's put in some A-Mians. Let's
Sure.
you know.
Maybe the
Odium.
Dawnshard is the Dawnshard that we both saw and didn't see is in that prologue with the Night Cavalier.
Oh, that's the black sphere. Easy. Done. And it just transformed because now there's void light in it. It makes sense. Easy. Bringing it back. Hey.
Terrible.
Read this.
Terrible.
All right. 2 more to go.
I'll save us from this.
Yeah.
Somebody brings up Steelheart because they're a fan, and Brandon says, interestingly and very surprisingly to me, that he has a little bit more work in that world. Probably some audio originals for Audible, which he's working on right now.
Oh, great. I can't wait to not listen to them because I don't listen to audio things. Fantastic.
It's also Reckoners, which...
Yeah,
Reckoners
it
is
could be
fine.
cool. It could be cool. I know he always had talked about writing like a second bridge novella between 2 and 3 in the same way Mitosis was between 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe this is that.
That just seems like a weird time to do that now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a Mizzy novella.
Yeah,
maybe
he
he's
said that.
working on this in the sense that like he's negotiating things and like planning and things like that, but not actually writing the script.
I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Are there Audible? What are Audible originals like? Can it be any length? Does anyone have any idea?
It's an audiobook that you can only get on Audible.
Oh, okay. So that could be anything. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Way to go,
I
Brandon.
think it
Amazon.
may also be. I think it may also be the kind of book that doesn't exist as a physical print or an ebook. Like it's just an audiobook, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Not excited.
No.
Not excited.
I can't focus on audiobooks at all. Like I have to focus enough, and if I'm focusing that much, I might as well read at my own pace. Like it just is irritating.
What I am excited about, however, is the next question.
All right, David, end us up.
David.
Let me wrap up with my favorite thing, white sand.
Oh, white sand.
There we go. Or maybe dark sand now. Commissioner, Taldane, are you going to do something with Darkside? Brandon, yes, we are actually. Now that we have more experience with graphic novels, we're going to do probably a Darkside, 3 more graphic novels that are going to be kind of more focused on Kriss. Questioner, will there be a prose for that? Brandon, there will probably not be a prose for it.
Don't get too excited, David, in reading
I will
this.
probably do Taldane novels in the future, but I can't promise them. For now, we are just going to do the graphic novel. They take a lot less time from me, and we're going to see how it works out. There are certain things we like and certain things we don't like, and mostly it's our fault, right? Not getting across some of the world building to the artists and things like that. We are gaining a lot of experience, but I don't plan on a prose Darkside novel anytime soon.
What do you think about that, David?
I think that reading that, I now think that they shouldn't have put one of Brandon's weakest unpublished novels in an entirely new format for the very first time. That seems like that we now can, like, with our 2020 hindsight, go, well, that makes sense why it didn't go perfectly. But I'm excited. Like, I legitimately am.
Let me disagree with you on that one, because I actually agree with Brandon's reasoning on this. He was like, I would like to try graphic novels, but I don't have the time to like sit down and write something that's going to be 1, up to my standards, and 2, designed specifically for a graphic novel.
Yeah.
So this white sand thing, I've got it written down. I can just give it to them. They can do all the work. I've already done my part. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work out, tough. But chances are I probably wouldn't have had time to polish that and publish it myself.
Swipe that or nothing.
It makes sense in that way, but not in the way that you want to turn out like an incredible product. Like if you wanted to knock your first graphic novel out of the park, that wasn't what you wanted to do.
I don't
in my
think that's
opinion,
what they wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they just wanted to tell the story and like show the world.
So I know Ian's always liked the idea of more graphic novels for White Sand, which makes sense that he will be pleased that it is in the same medium. Maybe they'll turn out better, but yes. What Grace? What do you think?
I I do want to get to see more of Taldane, so that is exciting.
Yes.
If we get to see that as a graphic novel. It doesn't say anything about the company that they're going to do this with, because aren't they already working with different companies for
Dark
like
One.
White Sand and Dark
They
One?
are.
So
Yeah.
Cross your fingers.
I can't possibly imagine they're gonna do Dynamite. There have been delays. There have been issues with the artists. There have been issues with the art. Just the quality of the dialogue, like the prose to graphic novel adaptation, right, has been questionable. So I imagine we're gonna see Darkseid from a different publisher, and I'm happy to no longer have Kriss in the hands of Dynamite.
Do you think they'll turn out better if something is being created afresh and could maybe be more colorful than it's like, hey, it's sand? Then, like, would the script be better or worse, do you think?
I think
I
better.
think
Better?
That now that they know what they're writing for, like if
I
they're
guess that's
writing a script with this
That's
is going to
true.
be a graphic novel
That's true.
in mind, then it's going to be better, you know? Otherwise, that's just incredible. That's inconceivable to me that you could try to write for a graphic novel and have it turn out worse. But
it's also the fact that they now know how the process goes
Yeah.
much better.
mhm.
Like the infamous boombox was there because Isaac didn't realize the artist, or rather the line art artist drew something with like just lines, black and white, and Isaac approved that, and then the colorist
Colored it.
assumed that thing was a boombox, and so, or like a radio, okay.
Yeah.
And so they colored that as a radio. So miscommunications like that,
Yeah.
and I, not this specifically, I think, but something like that, I think, is what Brandon is referring to when he goes not getting across some of the world building to the artists and things like that, or like why there are horses on in Lausanne, like that's
You mean the ceiling
Dragon
fan in the Lord
Steel.
Mastrel's office? So that's my favorite part.
Right. That's to an extent Dragonsteel not communicating the vision of the world to Dynamite Entertainment clearly enough to tell them that, hey, in this desert, I know there are other deserts out there, but in this desert there are no horses or ceiling fans.
yeah,
Or
and
boomboxes.
I do, and like, to be entirely fair, I think that does kind of show the difficulty of creating an entirely original world, is that things we take for granted and that we wouldn't notice stand out if you are really looking at it. So people
Artists
don't
would take that as a shorthand. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, then sure, why not?
Let's
Like,
put a ceiling fan in, and then you're like, oh wait, there's no, you have to
You
be
can't
always
do
thinking,
that.
does this make sense?
what would someone's bedside table be on
Mhm.
this totally different world? And like,
Yeah.
that's not
That's
easy.
tricky.
Or
It's hard.
Or
yeah.
like imagine you're putting together a graphic novel that takes place on Roshar, and you're portraying a man's, let's say, bedroom or whatever. If you weren't paying enough attention, you might put a book there,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Yeah.
shouldn't.
Right.
And so things like that.
Yeah.
And in that sense, Darkside graphic novels could be easier than Dayside because they do have more advanced technology.
That's true.
So it's
That's where it came from.
Don't-
The boombox.
Yeah.
Everyone knows
don't
that.
have to be as careful, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
It's also much darker, so you can just like make
Ah.
everything nearly invisible and just like
Blah.
Yeah.
vague shapes and lines.
Yeah, and
Great.
it's supposed to be like it's supposed to be really like, they're supposed to be very colorful and kind of, if you saw the James Cameron's Avatar, like nighttime
Yeah,
and
like
Pandora
that.
as. So I think that will look really good if they can pull off those kind of visuals. Like
That-
it'll be more exciting than sand.
The colors, yeah, that sounds just inherently more interesting than it's like, hey, the Sandmaster's wearing white or on white sand. Wow, incredible.
We got a blue sky with a single
Wow,
cloud. And you're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
it's fine.
Dark Side would be amazing with like the low key light and the bioluminescence. And
Yeah.
at one point, Kriss notes that Darksiders wear way more vibrant and colorful clothes.
And they have their sky colors, whatever that means. Like
Yeah.
Whatever that means. Yeah.
But there are probably some colors in the sky, which is great. They also have a lot more factions and cultures and countries in there. Even though everything's under Dynasty, you have at least like 6 or 7 named nations with distinct like cultures in there. Whereas on day side, you have 3.
Are you forgetting about Talon in Nor Talon? And
That's true.
the 5th country that's over there on this side? The Rim
Sevis?
Kingdom?
It's Sevis, actually. I'll have you
aren't
know.
they the-
Whose capital is
How-
Revan, and his king Revan spelled differently than the city Revan. I'll have you know.
The Rim Kingdoms? Aren't
The
that
Rim
what they're all
Kingdoms,
called?
that's right. The Rim Kingdoms.
The Rim Kingdoms are a thing, yes.
I wrote some of those articles. It's like, aha! Revan, the king of Sevis, one of the Rim Kingdoms. Capital Revan with an other E.
How could I possibly forget about these things?
I know.
It's what's his face?
I
Trials
will
Clan.
never have time differentiating between John Akron and Cinder, who are definitely different people.
And not just the same two-headed ogre who talk with each other.
Yeah, the dialogue flip made it just completely impossible. I was like, oh, I do not know which one of you is which.
I don't know if you were on one of the recent episodes I was in, David. I don't know if you were here. I mentioned that even in the graphic audio, I cannot differentiate between them.
Incredible.
I think in the last like couple of hours that I've listened to, because I'm trying really hard to differentiate between them. I think I've picked up on like a couple of things that tell me this is Cinder, this is John Akron. But I'm not sure, because 80% of the time is just dialogue between the two, and there's no, as you know, John Akron, or as you know, Cinder, and like things like that.
Cinder's
So-
the cool one. He's the one who actually he's the linguist. The other one is the goofball, who's the anthropologist. John
I couldn't
Akron.
remember. I
Yeah.
honestly
I-
couldn't remember.
I think it gets better in Volume 3. There's
Okay.
I'm excited. I'm excited to actually read that. So I gotta
Wait,
do
you
that
read
before
Volume
next.
3, Grace?
I have not read the prose.
Oh.
I'm like
No,
halfway through Volume 3,
Oh, okay.
so I
Fine.
don't know. I don't know what got changed or what I can
It
talk
would
about.
be nice to end on a high note relative to the other ones. Being like maybe better than mediocre. Like that'd be nice. You know? Like, that was a good ending. Yeah, okay, cool. That'd be nice. So we'll see. And you'll see next week when we
Yeah,
talk
you'll
about
hear our opinions.
and not next week, but I mean 2 weeks from now. But we'll record it next week for us. So there you go.
You'll see in the future.
In the future. All right. Well, holy crap. We talked a lot. Let's go to who's that Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace.
Tien.
Tom.
Braze.
Hoid in drag on a horse.
It's time for who's that Cosmere character? Caw.
So, listeners, you know how the game is played. You send an email to who's that or wtcc at 17thshard.com, and we may read the clues aloud on air. And after each clue, our panels will get a chance to guess who's that Cosmere character.
Like you just put May there. That's great.
Smooth.
Grace, let's just do one today because this is taking
Yeah.
a long time.
All right, this one was sent in by Mason Wheeler.
All right.
Clue 1: this character practices a magic system.
Okay.
Kenton.
Not Kenton.
Raiden.
Dryle.
Oh,
What? It's not Dryle.
Raiden, because he has to actually practice.
It's not
Hey.
Raiden.
Aeon.
Clue
Oh,
2: this character has lost a loved one.
Well, that's
Vasher.
never happened.
It's not Vasher.
Praxton.
It's not Praxton.
Let's get all the Sandmasters out of here.
Kenton. No.
I already guessed that.
Oh, did you really? Oh,
Yeah, that was my
man,
first guess.
Oh, well, I just knew you wouldn't get it. No.
like
Uh,
most
Valinor.
white sand things, it just passes.
Zoof.
I guess I'll have to guess Dalinar.
It is not Dalinar.
Damn.
Clue 3. This character lives in a land they were not born in.
Galadon.
It is not Galadon.
Lives in a land.
A remarkable lack of Rosharan guesses today.
Yeah.
What about? I'm trying to think of one of Kaladin's squires because a lot of them are foreign, and they practice
okay,
magic.
right.
Like,
okay,
what about
yeah.
what about Sigzil? Has he lost somebody? I'm just gonna guess Sigzil.
It is not Sigzil.
Right, you're right. I was interpreting this as world hoppers, but I think that's a good call.
Oh,
They don't have to be
we
world
don't
hoppers.
know of like any tragic backstory to Sig,
Yeah.
unless you count like him losing Hoid.
Yeah, I was just gonna say him and Hoid, yeah.
Oh, I got an idea now.
I don't know. I don't think this person has a magic system, though. I'm just gonna say Felt.
It is not Felt.
Yeah, he doesn't have a magic system.
This character was one of the first to witness a magical effect.
What about Rock?
It is not Rock.
Okay.
Huh. That is a very interesting clue.
Spren returning is definitely a thing.
A magical event.
Effect.
Oh, effect.
Ooh, that could be so many things.
Like I'm thinking like Serene seeing Raiden with the Aeon when he gets that to work. That's kind of an
But
effect.
she wasn't.
But she's not magic.
And not only she's not magic, she's not one of the first ones. Like Raoden was one of the first ones to witness that.
No, she was in the room though. Like didn't he light the bookcase on fire like with her standing there, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, an Aeon."
Yeah, but she doesn't have magical powers. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What was clue 2 again?
Lost a loved one.
Lost a loved one. Oh man.
That's why I guessed Rock because his family's dead, or at least his extended family.
You know what? I'm gonna go
Some of
Dilaf.
It is Dilaf.
Oh my gosh! Hey,
I like how we were all like guessing like Elantris-y things. I'm like, that's a good idea.
I don't.
He was one of the
How
first
is
to witness
he-
Elantris.
His wife.
His wife died.
She was attempted to be healed by the
Mhm.
Elantrian, but it went wrong, and she became the Hoed before Elantris fell.
Okay, so it's the Hoid that's the magical
Yes.
effect
Gotcha.
that's being
Okay.
referenced. Okay.
Wait. What did you say, Evgeni?
She in the attempt to heal her wife, the Elantrians turned her into something very similar to the Hoid. Like the heal was incomplete.
Yeah.
And so she couldn't live with this constant pain and she killed herself. Like
Yeah.
that is the magical effect that he was one of the first ones to witness. Not the city of Elantris itself. Lots of people had seen the city of Elantris.
Oh, I don't think anyone's saying the city of Elantris. I'm saying his wife. Like he was one of the first ones to see a Hoed. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
I thought
right,
you were saying.
fair.
I thought you were saying
All
that
right.
her death was somehow the event, and I was like, I don't think her.
No,
death.
no,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
He's decor.
The-
All right.
The Hoidness.
And what was clue
And-
5?
Clue 5. This character is officially evil.
I mean,
That's fair.
Dilaf is like one of the only characters that Brandon has ever said this guy is evil.
like if you're gonna, the old Brandon villains, it's like, wow, that guy's real evil. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
not a lot of
there's-
shades of gray.
There's no subtlety. Like, well,
I mean, the wife dying is some cool backstory. Like, it is cool for what it is, but there's not a lot of shades of gray of Dilaf. He's just like, he hates Elantris a lot. Why?
no, Dilaf's bad.
Yeah.
But pretty much everyone else but him is at least a little bit nuanced.
Yeah. And I mean,
Mhm,
Dilaf
yeah.
is interesting, even despite him being, he's more than just a mustache
Yeah.
twirling villain,
Mhm.
but
He's
he's
like,
villainous.
charisma. He's got, he's not a bland person, but he's just not got a
He
lot
has a
of good to him.
motivation.
You could say he has passion.
Odium was on cell then? Confirmed?
It is confirmed. It is confirmed, in fact.
Every time the word passion shows up in
That's
text.
right. Very passionate. It was Odium directly causing that event to occur. No.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for watching. We'll do more Who's That Cosmere characters later, but this episode's really long, so follow us at everythingshard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever hope for. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can message us on Discord, join our Discord server. You can leave us a review on iTunes and support us on Patreon, and we will see you all next time.
Peace.
Bye. I have car paint.
Bye.
Caw. And it's
You didn't introduce yourself, Eric.
I said I'm
Wait.
Eric. Sometimes
Feel
I
like
say
you-
I'm
don't you-
Chaos, sometimes I don't. It doesn't matter. It's
Oh,
fine.
you're chaos?
Spoilers.
Oh! That makes so much sense. All right.
you.